What would you do if you returned home after years, only to find the woman you left behind, standing on your land, with 3 children, and every single one of them has your eyes? That's exactly what happened to Jason Hale, a billionaire, a man who left his hometown chasing success, and a man who had no idea that love, family, and a life he never knew existed were waiting for him in the fields he abandoned. When he returns to sell the old ranch, he finds Mara Whitlock working the land he once called home, and 3 little kids with his storm-gray eyes calling her Mom. What follows is a storm of truth, heartbreak, betrayal, courtroom battles, land disputes, buried letters, and second chances. A fight not just for soil, but for family, identity, and the right to belong. But here's the real twist. The biggest battle isn't against a powerful corporation trying to steal the land. It's a battle against regret, forgiveness, and the past he thought he could walk away from. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? And if you love emotional stories about family, forgiveness, and love that refuses to die, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Now, let me take you to Willow Creek, where a man came back for land, and found the family he never knew he had. The fields of Hale Ranch hadn't seen Jason Hale in 4 long years. The summer sun beat down on the dry earth of Willow Creek, Texas, turning the air into a wavering mirage. Dust swirled behind his black truck as it rolled to a stop near the old barn. The property looked tired. Fences sagged, weeds crawled over fence posts, and the windmill creaked with each lazy gust of wind. He expected abandonment. He didn't expect someone to already be here. Jason stepped out, slamming the driver's door harder than he needed to. His pulse hammered with a mix of anger and disbelief. He left this place behind, sold most of it to the company he built, Hale Development Group, and only came back because of paperwork errors and a stubborn memory. Then he heard it. A soft humming, a woman's voice. He followed the sound past the barn, through rows of tall corn glowing gold in the sun. And then his voice, sharp, unfamiliar even to himself, cut through the quiet. "What the hell do you think you're doing here, Mara?" The woman froze, hands buried in the soil, straw hat shading her face. Slowly she rose. Mara Whitlock. Her dark hair was braided loosely down her back, mud streaked along her dress, sweat glistening along her collarbone. She didn't flinch. She didn't look shocked. She looked like she had expected him. "This isn't trespassing," she said calmly. "I've been working this land for 2 years. Jason scoffed. "Working my land? Hale Industries may own the deed," she said steady, "but this land was dying and I brought it back." He stepped closer, jaw tense. "You don't get to decide that. And don't tell me those are your kids." He stopped. Because under the massive sycamore tree by the edge of the field, 3 small children sat on a wooden crate husking corn. 2 girls and a boy, barefoot, dirt on their knees, soft curls, and the same storm-gray eyes he saw every morning in his own reflection. Jason's breath caught. Mara followed his gaze, then slowly faced him again. The younger twin girl blinked sleepily at Jason, clutching a half-shucked ear of corn. He stepped forward, voice cracking. "Mara, what is this?" Before she could answer, something slipped from her apron pocket. A folded envelope, old and weathered, landing in the dirt. Jason's eyes locked on it. Mara bent to reach it. He stepped faster. "Don't," she said sharply. But he was already there. "Mara," his voice tightened, "you disappear for years. And now I find you raising 3 kids who look like me." She backed away. Her foot slipped on the slick edge of an old irrigation ditch. She lost her balance. "Mara." Too late. She fell backward into a shallow pool of mud with a sharp gasp, dress soaking instantly, braids sinking into the wet soil. For a single heartbeat, everything stopped. Then, small feet hit the dirt. All 3 children scrambled toward her. The girls first, one quiet and wide-eyed, the other with trembling lips. The little boy ran silently, clutching a rag like it was some kind of armor. "Mommy," the small girl cried. "Mommy, are you okay?" The other girl whispered softly, "Careful." "Mommy." The boy didn't say anything. He just pressed the dirt-stained cloth into Mara's hands like a bandage. Mara sat up slowly, breathing hard. Mud clung to her arms, her jaw, her hair. She pulled the children close, wrapping them around her like a shield. Jason stood frozen. Those eyes. His mother's eyes. His eyes. All three children. Mara wiped mud from her cheek and met his gaze. They're mine. His chest clenched. You should have told me. You should have stayed, she replied, voice low. He swallowed, voice rough. Did you know when I left? She shook her head. Not that day. I found out later. Your number was disconnected. Then your lawyer sent me papers. No note. No address. Jason felt his throat tighten. Mara? The smallest girl stared at him, eyes bright and scared. Then whispered, Are you, Daddy? The ground felt like it shifted beneath him. He stepped back. Mara's arms tightened around her children. They're yours, she said softly. All three of them. Jason Hale, billionaire, landowner, man who walked away from everything real, stood in the middle of golden cornrows, unable to breathe. The envelope lay half buried in the mud beside Mara's hand. She picked it up and held it to her chest. The letter you never sent, she said, meeting his eyes. Found it in your old coat months after you were gone. You kept it? I kept it to remember what I survived without you. The boy tugged her sleeve again, peering around her at Jason. Is he mad? No, Noah, she murmured, kissing his hair. He's just surprised. Jason's gaze jumped between the twins and the boy. Their names? Mara's jaw worked, then softened. Hope, Lily, and Noah. Her hand hovered over each small head. They're under 4. And they are my entire world. His name found the smallest girl first. Hope tilted her chin, brave, curious, the first to reach out, tiny fingers wrapping around his pinky. The touch hit him like a fault line cracking. He took a step back, then another. I didn't come here for this, he said hoarsely. No, Mara replied. You came to see what money bought. But you found something it can't. He looked at the sycamore again, at the crate, at the rows of corn that somehow looked less dead than he expected. His throat burned. He left without another word. By the time he reached town, dusk had burned the sky to copper. He pulled into the gravel lot of the Silver Pines Lodge, a squat strip motel with a flickering neon sign and a flag bleached by sun. Inside, lemon cleaner and old wood floated in the air. Jason Hale? Mrs. Aldridge peered over the counter. Well, I'll be. Haven't seen you since you thought chewing tobacco was a personality. He huffed a humorless laugh. Room for the night? She slid a key across without asking questions. 3B. Try not to break it with your big city sadness. He lay on the thin mattress, stared at the cracked ceiling. His phone buzzed with emails, pings, deliverables, an urgent note about a Vegas rollout. He flipped it face down and reached into his wallet for the photo he always pretended not to carry. Him and Mara on her grandmother's porch, laughing like fools, wide open and unafraid. God, he'd loved her. And he'd left. He sat up, dragged a hand over his face, and forced a breath until the world steadied. Then he stood. He didn't drive to the highway. He turned back toward the ranch. By the time he reached the fence line, the sky had deepened to velvet. Crickets tuned the night. The porch light haloed the front door in a warm, fragile circle. He didn't knock. He stood at the fence, hands in pockets, and waited. The screen door creaked. Mara stepped out with a chipped mug, hair loose and damp from a shower, towel looped around her shoulders. She saw him and stopped. You shouldn't be here. I know. Then why are you? Jason stared at the ground. Because you didn't lie. And I did. I told myself none of this mattered anymore. That you didn't. That I could build a life on top of a broken one. He looked up. I was wrong. Silence stretched. I want to know them, he said. Not out of guilt. Because when that little girl held my hand, I remembered what it felt like to be human. Mara came down the steps, closed the space between them until he could see the flecks of gold in her eyes. I've built a world without you, she said. Brick by brick. Bath by bath. If you want a place in it, don't talk. She held out the mug. Start by listening. The cinnamon vanilla steam rose under his chin. He took the mug like an oath. For a long time he stood in the porchlight circle, drinking, listening to the house settle around the small breaths of sleeping children. And for the first time in years he didn't feel like a billionaire. He felt like a man on the edge of home. The rooster crowed at 5:14 a.m., like it had been rehearsing. Jason groaned on the couch, cheap throw pillow digging into his temple, his expensive watch imprinting half-moons on his cheek. For a second he didn't know where he was. Then the smell of coffee and the hush of small feet across old would reset the world. He rolled off the couch and shoved his arms into yesterday's shirt, sleeves already wrinkled and mud-crusted from the cornfield. The front door yawned open to cool dawn air. The yard woke in layers, cicadas, a soft cluck chorus, the scuff-scuff of boots. Mara stood by a lopsided chicken coop, flannel shirt and jeans, hair twisted into a loose braid. Hope and Lily danced in mismatched overalls and rubber boots 2 sizes too big. Noah sat on an upside-down bucket, earnestly holding a bowl of feed as if it were a relic. "You weren't kidding about chickens?" Jason said, rubbing his neck. "Thought I was being poetic?" Mara tossed him a pair of work gloves. "Welcome to Riverbend." "Oh right, the sign fell, so. Welcome to the land that won't survive another monsoon if we don't reinforce this base." He fumbled the gloves, caught them, swallowed a smile he didn't deserve. The coop looked like it had survived a small war. The side panels canted inward, the wire sagged, the frame bowed just enough to invite coyotes and disaster. Mara handed him a hammer and a sack of nails. "You good with tools?" He lifted a brow. "I own a construction company." "That's not what I asked." He winced. "Not since college. Today's a good day to remember." They worked in a rhythm of need and breath. Hope tried to direct traffic with a stick. Lily attempted to translate for a chicken in a series of impressive squawks. Noah watched from his bucket, quiet and precise, eyes flicking to Jason's hands, memorizing the pattern of grip and strike. Jason missed the nail and swore under his breath. "You okay?" Mara asked without glancing up. Bleeding dignity. Her mouth tugged, almost a smile. "You'll live." He wanted to say, "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you." But he didn't. He used his hands. He listened. When they finished reinforcing the frame, the sun had cleared the pecans. Dust drifted in thin gold sheets. Lily ran past with a triumphant feather, Hope declared herself traffic captain of hens, and Noah stood to offer Jason the bowl of feed with ceremony. "For me?" Jason asked. Noah nodded. "You're carrying heavy things." It landed deeper than a compliment. They washed up at the porch spigot. Inside, the kitchen was smaller than any of his penthouses, cabinets chipped, counters worn, a parade of fair magnets holding children's drawings. It felt more like a home than anything steel and glass had ever given him. Breakfast was quiet on purpose. The kids paused before eating, eyes closed, a breath, a private ritual. Mara didn't sit. She leaned against the counter, coffee steaming, watching without hovering. Jason waited, let the twins scoop grits and bacon. He ate like a man who hadn't tasted permission in years. "I used to hate breakfast," he said finally. "Thought mornings were for meetings, not meals." "Missed the memo on growing kids," Mara replied, eyes amused. "Guess I did." They cleaned plates together. She handed him a dish towel without commentary when he loaded cups upside down on the drying rack. Then she pulled open a drawer and set something on the table. The envelope. Edges softened, his name in her looping hand. He stared at it like you stare at an old wound that throbs in weather. "I found it 2 months after you left," Mara said, voice steady. "In your work coat." "Why didn't you burn it?" he asked. "I wasn't ready to erase you." He unfolded the letter. The paper smelled faintly of oil and dust, ink bled at 2 spots, tears or rain he couldn't tell. The handwriting was his. "Mara, if you're reading this, I didn't have the nerve to say it out loud. I'm scared I'll lose you chasing something I don't even understand. I keep telling myself I'll come back. That when I've made it, it will make sense. I love you. I just don't know if that's enough for the man I'm trying to be. J." He exhaled like it had weight. "I don't remember writing it." "I do," she said. "I remember every word you didn't say." Outside, Lily shrieked at a hen. Hope narrated a chase. Noah hummed, stacking magnets into order on the fridge door. Life kept happening. Do they know anything? He asked. They know a man left, Mara said. That's all. He nodded. It cut and calmed at once. Can I tell them? One day. When you earn the right. He folded the letter along old creases, gentler this time, and slid it back across the table. Show me the next thing that breaks. The well pump, she said, grabbing her hat. Been acting up since spring. They stepped into heat that had lost its edge. The pump groaned like a stubborn old dog. Jason wrestled with a valve. Mara nudged his hand aside, not unkind, and repositioned with light pressure. Cokes don't force, she said. It responds to patience more than pressure. He watched her hands, calloused, precise, telling a story of years he hadn't earned. People too? He asked. Especially people. The pump sputtered, coughed, and then water gushed into the waiting bucket, cold, bright. Astonishment turned liquid. Mara didn't grin at him. She smiled to herself and stood, wiping grease from her cheek. You're welcome. Jason laughed, the sound breaking loose from somewhere he thought development deals had paved over. He lifted the bucket and followed her back. On the porch, Hope tried to braid Lily's curls and achieved knots. Noah read the little engine that could under his breath. I think I can, like a spell. Mara handed Jason a rag. You've got grease on your face, she said, and probably in your soul. It'll take more than a rag, he replied. I know. He looked at the children. They're smart. They're survivors, she said simply. Do they know they have my eyes? They know their eyes are a storm, Mara said, gaze distant. That's enough for now. A flutter of guilt rose, but something else pressed with it. Want. Not possession or control. A desire to stay. To learn. To fail in front of them and not leave. The day folded into errands that didn't care about ambition. Wire to stretch, a hinge to reset, a chair to shim with a folded beer coaster. He learned the language of silence. Her glance that meant hand me that, her inhale that meant don't, her soft laugh that meant keep going, you're close. By evening, the house held a warmth he couldn't buy. Mara set a pillow and quilt at the end of the couch without preamble. You'll take the couch, she said. Of course. And tomorrow, wear Real boots. He smiled. Noted. She paused at the hall. Good job today, she said quietly. With them. With the work. He looked at the ceiling to steady his voice. Thanks for letting me try. Earn it again tomorrow, she said. Then she disappeared down the hall. He lay back and stared at the shadow of the new moon across the ceiling, listened to 3 small breaths and 1 steady one beyond the wall, and thought, I will. The next day trained him. Not in money and metal, but in staying. They patched the west fence line where age had gnawed through cedar rails. Jason misset a nail, split a board clean down the grain, swore, fixed it. Mara measured, guided, corrected without humiliation. When they finished, the fence stood straighter than his back had in months. At noon, the twins staged a tea party for a council of stuffed animals on the porch. Dragon chair for brave people, Hope announced, pointing to an overturned bucket marked with a red bandana. Jason bowed and took his throne. Lily poured invisible tea with real seriousness. Noah issued rules no one argued with. Mara returned with lemonade, cornbread, and a look that said you're ridiculous and it's perfect. Thought you were working, not playing royalty, she teased. Lines blur around here, he said. They did. Work and play and penance all looked like the same motion, showing up. After lunch, he wandered to the porch beam and touched an old wind chime, rusted, off-key, the ugliest thing he'd ever bought on a roadside their first summer. He flicked it. The sound was still broken. It was music anyway. In the kitchen before dinner, Mara slid open the drawer again. The letter. She handed it to him, then pulled out a thin wooden box he hadn't seen. What's that? He asked. Something I meant to give them when they turned 10. She eased it open. Inside, bundles of envelopes tied with string, each labeled in her hand. For Hope too. For Lily too. For Noah too. For each year a letter. The room seemed to shift around the weight of them. You did this alone? He asked, throat tight. I didn't want them to wonder who they were if I wasn't around. He lifted one at random, for Hope too, and read the first line. Today you told me the moon is a flashlight God forgot to turn off. I didn't argue. It was better than anything I had. He put the letter down before salt could hit the paper. They should read these, he said. They will, she answered. In time. He reached for a notebook and pen he hadn't touched since college. He wrote 3 letters that night by the blue light of a bug zapper. Hope, you lead with your heart. That's not a weakness. It's a compass. Lily, you hold the world like it already belongs to you. Don't let anyone make it smaller. Noah, you watch before you speak. That's a kind of courage too. He didn't write to Mara. Not yet. The storm came the following evening as if it had been waiting for them to build small happiness before it tested the nails. The wind cracked in from the east, dark and mean, flipping leaves to silver. The first thunder shuttered the windows. The second made the house groan like it remembered every storm before it. Rain sliced sideways, needled and cold. In the living room, the kids built a quilt fortress and armed themselves with flashlights. Mara wrapped her robe tighter, hair coming loose. The barn's east latch snapped, she said, voice already at the door. If the mare spooks, we lose her to the dark. I'll go, Jason said. She blinked. It's brutal out there. I've handled worse, he replied. He had. He just never handled it for anything that mattered. The rain tried to skin him alive when he hit the porch. Lightning scratched the sky. He ran bent double to the barn, wrestled the east door against a gust, braced it with a shovel and an overturned feed bin. Inside, the mare stamped and blew. The goat bleated like a complaint. Easy, he said, hands steady on leather. We're not going anywhere. The flashlight died mid-curse. He worked by memory, the drip in the south corner, the bucket moved left 2 inches to catch it, the knot under the goat's foot teased loose with careful fingers. The barn smelled like hay and fear and old wood giving its strength back. He turned to go, foot catching on an old canvas duffel wedged behind straw bales. He pulled it free, unzipped it. Inside, a tin box, documents, a small blue shirt with a fraying hem, Sam embroidered in faint thread near the waist. Not Sam. No, Noah. Before names changed. Before he left. His breath hitched. In the tin, a hospital bracelet. 3 actually paper-thinned by time, names and dates inked in, an hour that should have been carved into him. At the bottom, a photograph. Mara in a hospital bed, hair messy, eyes fierce with a tired kind of joy. 3 swaddled bundles in her arms. Jason slumped in a chair, head tipped against her shoulder, one hand cradling a baby's tiny back. He was there. He had been there long enough to cry. He tasted metal. He didn't remember leaving. He only remembered running. He put everything back like it mattered. Then he ran through the storm. Mara was in the kitchen drying towels at the stove when he burst in, soaked to the bones, duffel under his arm. She turned, took in his face and straightened. "Why didn't you tell me I was there?" he said, laying the bag on the table like evidence and mercy both. "You were," she said quietly. "For an hour. Maybe 2. You held hope. You cried. Then you said you had a meeting in Denver. You kissed my forehead and left." "I don't remember," he whispered. "I think you didn't want to," she replied. He stared at the photo until the world blurred. "I was a coward." "Yes," she said. "Not cruel." "True." They stood in the sound of the storm and their breathing, and then a small voice at the doorway. "Why are you crying, Mr. Jason?" Hope, blanket around her shoulders, hair sticking in arcs. He wiped his face and crouched. "I'm not." He was. "But if I were, it would be because I'm very, very lucky." She tucked under his chin like she'd been doing it for years. He put a palm on her back and felt the exact size of what he'd almost lost. Morning after a storm tastes like metal and forgiveness. The yard wore puddles like mirrors. The cottonwood stretched as if waking. Birds returned to their arguments. Jason stood at the fence with a shovel and the canvas duffel at his feet. He had slept in snatches on the couch, every thunder that rolled across the roof bringing with it the photo's ghost. Him in a chair, proof of a man he could have been. He turned a dead herb bed behind the half-built platform they called a future treehouse. The soil was stubborn but softened by rain. He cleared weeds until the rectangle felt like a promise. "What are you doing?" Mara called from the porch, coffee in hand. starting something. That was my time garden, she said. Died a long time ago. I'm bringing it back. Why? He straightened, breath loud. Because I found my name again. And I want it to mean something. She watched him a beat, then went inside. By afternoon, he'd planted 3 small rows, lavender, basil, thyme. Nothing flashy. Just alive. The kids crowded the edge like ship passengers, peering into a new world. They whispered names to the dirt. Captain Mint, Princess Butterbell, the cow would be honored. Sir Rudy, a rooster with attitude. That evening, he brought the photo to the kitchen. Mara was stirring stew. He set it on the counter. I want this on the wall, he said. That old thing? She asked, not looking. It's the only proof I belonged here once, he said. I want them to see it. To know I was there and I'm here now. She didn't answer. He continued, not pleading, naming. I thought leaving would keep it clean. Send money. Wash the guilt. But all I did was vanish, he said. I was afraid of failing, of being ordinary, of being my father when he was worst. So I built something big enough to drown the quiet. And I left everything that made me real. She turned, eyes not hard now, just tired and clear. You still haven't told them. I will, he said. Soon. But not as an apology. As truth I can stand up under. Then you'll be the one to tell them, she said. When you're ready. He nodded once like a vow. That night, the kids demanded a story from when you were little. He told them about the bowling giants in the sky his mama swore were just thunder and how you could tell who was winning if you listened close. Noah frowned because physics. Lily gasped because dragons. Hope leaned on his shoulder like she'd found a dock. Mara stood in the doorway, arms folded. She left the door open when she went down the hall. Later, he slipped outside to the new garden with the photo in a plastic sleeve and pressed it beneath a flat stone. This is where my name begins again, he whispered to the soil. The next morning the quiet felt wrong. No barn hum. No rooster heckling the sunrise. Mara sat at the kitchen table with a yellowed envelope and knuckles white around her coffee mug. It came this morning, she said. Mail truck nearly got stuck in the mud. Left this on the porch. He slid the paper free. Stonewall Corpse lawyers, their letterhead heavy enough to bruise, were asserting intent to claim. Abandonment, improper transfer, a lapse in tax filings during a year he had vanished. He read it twice, heat crawling his neck. I paid those taxes, Mara snapped. Every damn year. I know, he said. They're counting on me to walk away. She met his gaze, unflinching. You going to? No, he said, and the words settled like weight in his bones. We fight. Damn right, she said. That afternoon, under the cottonwood, the kids sketched the treehouse like architects. Pulley system, curtains, a hidden hatch. Noah's idea naturally. From the porch, Mara watched them, then disappeared inside and returned with a plain wooden box. She placed it in Jason's hands. Give them these when the time's right, she said. His letters from 2 nights ago sat beside hers now, his ink a new stripe in the family's record. He nodded, a kernel of gratitude catching in his throat. As the sun leaned toward evening, a truck engine echoed from the far service trail, one only locals knew. Jason tensed. A white pickup rolled out of the tree line, too clean for country. A man slid from the cab in city shoes, smile polished. Mr. Hale, he called. Logan Bradford. Acquisitions, Stonewall Corporation. Jason planted his feet. You're trespassing. Apologies, Logan said, hands raised. We tried calling. Thought a personal visit might expedite. He glanced at the house. We found an anomaly in the title chain. The land is fluid, so we're prepared to make a generous offer. Not interested. 7 figures, Logan said smoothly. Clean close. Walk away with freedom. His smile sharpened. This place is a miracle it's still standing. Outdated equipment. No real irrigation. 1 woman with chicken wire and willpower. 3 kids. It's a matter of time. That woman is raising my children, Jason said, voice gone quiet in a way that carried. Logan blinked. Recalculated. Of course. No disrespect. Jason took a step closer. Turn around. Drive away. Don't come back. Wind lifted dust between them. Logan adjusted his collar, retreat packaged as courtesy. Storms have a way of changing men, he said, backing up. If you change your mind, our offer stands. He drove off. The storm that night didn't come from the sky. It lived in paper and signatures and a company's hunger. Jason closed the door behind him and set his hand against the wood. He had left once. He wouldn't again. He turned to Mara. They're not taking this place, he said. Not while I'm here. Her eyes searched his face for the exit. Didn't find one. She nodded. Not cautious this time. Believing. The storm outside raged against the farmhouse windows, but inside, the walls held firm. The wind pushed and howled across the fields of Hale Ranch as though trying to uproot everything in its path. Yet for the first time in a long time, Jason felt something other than chaos inside of him. Resolve. Mara stood by the window, arms folded, eyes fixed on the storm. The soft golden light from the old lamp lit her face, tired, strong, guarded. Jason stood on the other side of the room, drying his hair with a towel. Between them lay the legal letter from Stonewall Corporation. Its words might as well have been a weapon. They won't stop, Mara said quietly. Even if you told them to leave. They'll file. They'll threaten. They'll push us until we break. Jason nodded slowly. His voice was steady. Then we won't break. Silence lingered. You're sure? She asked, not softly, not coldly, just honestly. Yes. And that was enough. By morning the storm had passed. The sun rose over the ranch like a quiet apology, spilling gold across the wet fields. The air smelled of wet dirt and cedar wood. The kids were already awake, Hope and Lily sitting on the porch steps, braiding each other's damp curls, while Noah sat cross-legged in the grass, tinkering with a broken wind-up toy like it was a bomb he could disarm. Jason stepped outside, hands in his pockets. Mara followed, holding 2 mugs of coffee. We need a lawyer, she said. I know. And not just any lawyer. Someone who knows how Stonewall plays. Jason looked out at the fence line. There's someone, right? Mara nodded slowly. Marianne Collier. She took on the mining company 10 years ago. But she doesn't do lightweight cases. She'll take ours, Jason said. You don't know that. I don't, he admitted, but I know what we're fighting for. They drove into town that afternoon. Willow Creek was small. 1 gas station, 1 diner, 1 hardware store that doubled as a town meeting place. Word had traveled fast that Jason Hale was back. They could feel eyes following them as they passed by. Marianne's office sat between an antique thrift store and a barber shop. The sign read Collier and Reeves, Legal Counsel. Inside, paper stacks, case files, and framed newspaper clippings filled the walls. Local hero beats mining giant, farmer wins backwater rights, big money loses to small town justice. Marianne Collier was in her 60s, sharp-eyed, hair streaked silver and black, posture like a blade. She studied them for a long moment before speaking. You're back, she said to Jason. Didn't think you would be. I didn't either, Jason answered. Mara didn't look at him. Marianne glanced at their hands. They weren't touching, but they were close. Finally she asked, Why'd you come to me? Jason looked at her squarely. Because they want to take the land. And because it's not just land anymore. Marianne's expression didn't change. You know Stonewall will come after everything? Records, bank accounts, your past, even your kids. We know, Mara said evenly. You ready for that? Marianne asked. Jason inhaled slowly. Yes. Marianne sat back. Then let's get to work. That night back at the ranch, the air was warm, still heavy with the scent of damp earth and cedar after the storm. Hope and Lily played near the porch, drawing on scrap wood with chalk. Noah sat quietly beside them, drawing something in a notebook. A map? A machine? A house? Jason couldn't tell. He sat on the porch steps watching them. Mara stepped outside, leaning against the doorway. What are you thinking? Jason didn't look away from the kids. That I left once and I'll never do it again. She was quiet. He continued. I don't want to just win this land back. I want to earn a place in it. Mara looked at him long and hard, like she was searching for any cracks. Finally, "You show up tomorrow?" she asked. "And the day after," he said. "And when it gets hard?" she asked. "I'm not leaving." She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "Breakfast is at 6, she said quietly. He smiled. That night before bed, Jason opened the box where he kept the letters. His letters and Mara's letters to the kids. He stared at them for a long time. Then he picked up a pen and wrote another. "To Mara, I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. Maybe I never will. But I'm here. And I'm staying. You built this life without me. But if you'll let me, I want to build the rest with you. Jason." He folded it, slid it into the box next to hers. Down the hall, he could hear the kids whispering in their beds. Hope asking if the storm monsters were gone. Lily promising she'd fight them if they came back. Noah saying he didn't believe in monsters, but his voice trembled. Jason smiled faintly in the dark. Outside, the sky cleared. A new storm was coming. But so was a fight. And this time he wasn't running. The morning sun broke over Hale Ranch with a pale gold softness, but beneath the calm sky, the weight of what was coming pressed on everyone like unseen thunder. Jason was already awake when the rooster crowed. He sat at the kitchen table, papers laid out in front of him, Stonewall Corp's legal notice, property deeds, faded tax receipts with Mara's handwriting on them. His coffee sat untouched, going cold. Mara entered minutes later. No greeting, just a nod. Then she tied her hair back, rolled her sleeves, and said, "We're leaving in 20 minutes. Marianne wants to file everything today." Jason nodded. "I'll be ready." "You better be," she said, but her voice held no anger, just resolve. Outside, the kids were on the porch steps, waiting for instructions like soldiers in pajamas. "You going to court today?" Hope asked. "No," Mara replied gently. "Just paperwork." "Is it about the man in the fancy truck?" Lily asked, nose scrunched. "It's about keeping home," Jason said. Noah looked up from his drawing. "Will we lose it?" Jason crouched in front of him. "Not if I can help it." Hope tapped her chalk against the wooden step. "Is that a promise?" "Yeah," Jason said quietly. "It is." The drive into town was quiet, broken only by gravel crunching under tires and the occasional bird call. Willow Creek came into view, rusted mailboxes, weather-beaten storefronts, a main street that looked stuck between history and poverty. They parked behind the legal office. Marianne was waiting inside with a stack of documents and a half-drunk cup of coffee. "No time to waste," she said. "Stonewall already filed a motion to expedite arbitration. They want a court date in 30 days. "That's soon?" Mara asked. "Predatory land cases move faster than fair trials," Marianne muttered. Jason sat forward. "What do we need to do?" Marianne handed him a pen. "Sign. Fight. Don't lie about anything. The judge will see through it. And for the love of God, don't lose your temper." He signed. Then Mara signed. It felt like war. Back at the ranch, things didn't stop just because legal papers were filed. Fences still needed mending. Animals needed feeding. The kids needed laughter. Jason spent the afternoon fixing the loose boards of the chicken coop. Sweat dripped from his brow. His hands, once familiar with polished boardroom tables, were now raw from rope and splinters. "Mama says the fence on the west side is leaning again," Hope said from behind him. "She's right," Jason replied. "I'll reinforce it tomorrow." "You're staying tomorrow?" she asked. "And the day after," he said. "And forever?" Lily added, hands clasped under her chin. Jason paused, then nodded. "If you'll let me." Hope smiled. Lily squealed. Noah simply said, "Okay." As though that settled everything. The next morning, Jason woke before the sun and stepped onto the porch. The world smelled like dew and mesquite smoke. Mara was already outside tightening a bolt on the water trough. "You're up early," he said. "You're late," she replied. He smirked despite himself. They worked in silence, the comfortable kind that didn't need words. After a while she asked, "You regret coming back?" "No," he said without hesitation. Mara's tools stilled. "Even with all this?" Jason looked at her. Dirt on her cheekbone. Sleeves rolled. eyes tired but blazing with life. "Especially with all this," he said. Later that day, Noah wandered into the kitchen holding a scrap of wood and a pencil. "Can you help me build something?" he asked Jason. "What is it?" "A box," Noah said, "but with a lock. For secrets." Jason hesitated. "Not bad secrets," Noah added. "Just things I don't want to lose." Jason nodded slowly. "Yeah, kid. I can help with that." Together they built it from leftover cedar planks. Imperfect, crooked, beautiful. That night, for the first time, they all ate dinner together at the table. No separate spaces. No distance. Hope talked about teaching the chickens to dance. Lily insisted she saw a cloud shaped like a horse. Noah stared at Jason as though memorizing his face. And Mara. She didn't smile much. But she didn't look away. Later, after the kids were tucked into bed, Jason sat on the porch steps, elbows on his knees. Mara stepped out, arms folded, staring at the horizon where the stars met the black line of the fields. "They're going to come harder next," she said quietly. "They'll dig into your past. Into mine. They'll try to make us look like liars." Jason nodded. "Let them dig. And if they find something?" "They will," he said. "But I'm still not leaving." Silence. Then Mara handed him a blanket. "For the couch," she said. He smiled faintly. "Thanks." She stepped back inside. But the door stayed open. The wind whispered across the fields. The house creaked softly like it was breathing again. And for the first time since he was a boy, Jason Hale felt like he was becoming a father. A man. And someone worth staying for. The next week moved like slow thunder, quiet, steady, always carrying the feeling that something was about to break. Each morning, Jason woke before dawn to the distant sound of roosters and the softer sound of his own heartbeat. The couch was too small, his back ached, but it was the best sleep he'd had in years. He worked. Not in boardrooms or polished offices, but in mud, in sawdust, in the rhythm of hammers and fence posts. His clean hands turned calloused. His expensive watch was replaced by a leather strap Noah made him from old saddle scraps and twine. And every day Hope, Lily, and Noah watched him the way wild animals watch the sky, hopeful, cautious, learning if this was a storm that would pass or one that would stay. Stonewell Corp didn't wait long. 3 days after the legal papers were filed, a black SUV rolled down the long dirt drive again. Dust rose behind it like smoke. Jason was hammering a hinge on the barn door. Mara was stacking feed sacks. The children played under the sycamore tree. The SUV stopped at the fence. This time 2 men stepped out. Logan Bradford again, perfect hair, pressed suit, smug half-smile. Beside him, a shorter man in a dark gray suit, carrying a leather briefcase like a weapon. His eyes were cold steel. "Mr. Hale," Logan said, voice smooth as oil. "Miss Whitlock." Jason wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. "You're trespassing again." The second man spoke. "I'm Charles Benton, Senior Counsel for Stonewell Corporation." His voice was sharp, precise, dangerous. "We're here," Benton said, "to extend a final offer before this becomes unpleasant." Mara leaned on the fence. "You've got 30 seconds. Logan ignored her. $5 million. Immediate transfer. No court. No publicity. Jason didn't blink. "No. You haven't even heard the—" "No," he repeated. Benton's jaw tightened. "If you fight us, we will win. We have more lawyers, more money, more time." Jason stepped forward. "I don't care about your money." Logan's smile faded. "You think this is about pride? It's not. It's about math. You can't afford this." Jason looked at Mara. She said nothing, but she was standing beside him. He turned back. "You're right," Jason said. "I can't afford it." Logan smirked. "But this land isn't for sale." Benton closed his briefcase sharply. "Then we'll see you in court." They returned to the SUV. Before getting in, Logan glanced at the children. Hope stared back, chin high, eyes storm gray and fearless. He looked away first. That night, the ranch lights glowed softly across the fields. The kids sat around the kitchen table drawing pictures of the future treehouse. Jason sharpened pencils. Mara filled in court paperwork under the weak lamplight. "Why do they want our farm?" Lily asked. Mara paused, then said softly, "Because people with power like to take from people who don't have any." Hope frowned. "But they can't take it if it's not theirs." Jason looked up from the papers. "Sometimes, they try anyway." Noah tapped his pencil. "Then we don't let them." Jason felt something tighten in his chest, like a thread pulling him toward a life he thought he'd lost. 2 days later, the phone rang at dawn. Mara answered. Her face changed. Jason stood up fast. "What is it?" She hung up slowly. "That was Marianne," she said. "We've been assigned a court date." "How soon?" Jason asked. Mara looked at him. 10 days. Everything shifted. The ranch didn't slow down. Animals still needed feeding, fences still fell when wind blew, but now, every chore was done with urgency. They gathered documents, tax receipts, birth records, hospital forms, photos, even the old letter Jason wrote but never sent. The kids sensed the change in the air, but they didn't panic. They helped. Hope organized papers by color. Lily made tiny American flags from crayons and tape for the judge. Noah sat beside Jason one night and said quietly, "If we lose, do we lose you too?" Jason swallowed. "No. But you left before." "I know," Jason said. "And I'll spend every day proving I won't again." Noah studied his face, then nodded once. That was enough for now. 3 nights before court, Jason found Mara on the porch, staring at the horizon. "You're quiet," he said. "You're not," she said. He sat beside her. "You're scared." "So are you." "Yes." They sat in silence. Crickets sang in the grass. Finally Mara said, "Do you know what this land is?" Jason looked at her. "What?" "It's the only place I've ever belonged," she whispered. "And for a long time I thought it was something I had to protect from you too." Jason's breath caught. Mara's voice broke, but she didn't cry. "But now, I'm tired of doing it alone." He turned to face her. "Mara?" She shook her head. "Don't promise me anything." "You didn't? You just said, 'I'm staying.'" That night he wrote another letter. "To Hope, Lily, and Noah, if the world tries to take this place from you, know this, they can take land. They can take money. But they don't get to take your story. Because it's rooted deeper than anything they own. Dad." He folded it and placed it beside their mother's letters. The wind outside shifted. The sky quieted. Somewhere in the dark, courage took root. The morning of the hearing came quietly, too quietly. The house was awake before dawn. Mara moved through the kitchen in a soft flannel shirt, her hair pulled back, pouring coffee into metal travel mugs. Jason stood by the window, buttoning a shirt that still smelled faintly of wood smoke and hay. Neither spoke much. It wasn't a day for many words. The kids were still asleep, Hope curled against Lily, and Noah lying flat on his back with one arm over his eyes. For a moment, Jason just stood in the doorway of their room, watching them breathe, memorizing the way the early light brushed over their faces. He wanted to wake them, but Mara gently touched his arm. "Let them rest," she whispered. "They'll know soon enough." He nodded. Mara left a note on the kitchen table. "Breakfast is in the fridge. Miss Clara will be here at 8. We love you. Mom and Jason." She hesitated for only a second, then crossed out "Jason," wrote "Dad" above it and left both words. The drive to the courthouse in Marston County took an hour. The roads were empty, dawn light still creeping between the hills. Jason kept one hand on the steering wheel, the other clenched around the old photo in his pocket, the one from the hospital. Mara sat beside him, silent, fingers locked around a stack of legal folders on her lap. She didn't cry. She didn't fidget. She stared straight ahead. "You okay?" Jason asked quietly. "No," she said honestly. "But I'm ready." He nodded. "Me too." The courthouse. The Marston County Courthouse was a squat, beige building that looked as though someone had given up halfway through designing it. Its stone steps were cracked, the flag out front faded by sun and wind. A crowd had already gathered outside. Neighbors, ranchers, local reporters. Even Pastor Jed and Miss Clara, wearing her yellow church hat like she was about to throw it at someone if needed. As Jason and Mara walked up the steps, Hope's schoolteacher, Mrs. Thornton, pressed a hand to her heart and whispered, "We're praying for you." Mara nodded, chest tight. Jason held the door for her. Inside, polished floors, sharp echoes, cold air conditioning. Courtroom B. They entered. Marianne Collier stood at the defendant's table with her sleeves rolled up and her glasses perched low on her nose. "You two ready?" she asked. "Yes," Mara said. Jason nodded. "Good," Marianne said. "Because they're not going to show mercy." Across the aisle, Stonewall Corp's side of the courtroom was pristine. Logan Bradford sat in a dark suit, tapping a pen against a legal pad rhythmically, like he was rehearsing victory. Next to him, sharp-featured attorney Charles Benton flipped through documents, his expression smug and unreadable. Behind them, two other corporate representatives sat stiffly, like soldiers. Jason's jaw tightened. Mara's hand brushed his beneath the table, barely a touch. But it grounded him. The judge enters. Court is now in session. All rise. Judge Harold Barrett, a tall, silver-haired man with stern eyes, took his seat. He was known in Willow Creek for two things: hating dishonesty more than crime, and never being late to anything in his life. "You may be seated." He looked over both parties. "This is Stonewall Corporation versus Jason Hale and Mara Whitlock, regarding land ownership and claims of unlawful occupation," he said calmly. "We will begin with opening statements." Stonewall's opening. Charles Benton stood. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "this isn't a personal matter, it's a legal one. 4 years ago, Mr. Jason Hale abandoned this ranch. No transfer documents were filed. No proof of continued ownership. No taxes paid by him. Therefore, Stonewall legally purchased the property contractually from Hale Industries." He turned slightly toward Jason. "Now, Mr. Hale has returned to reclaim a land he legally surrendered." Mara stiffened. Jason's fists curled. Benton didn't stop. "As for Miss Whitlock, she is at best a trespasser. At worst, a manipulator using children to justify unlawful residency." A low murmur spread across the courtroom. Jason shot upright. Marianne grabbed his arm. "Sit," she whispered sharply. "Your time is coming." Marianne's opening. Marianne stood. "For 4 years," she began, voice steady, "Miss Whitlock has farmed land abandoned by a billionaire who forgot where he came from. She raised 3 children alone. Paid property taxes with money she didn't have. Kept the land alive." She held up a stack of faded receipts. Every year. Her signature. Her handwriting. Her sweat. She stepped forward. "And Mr. Hale? Yes, he left. Yes, he was wrong. But he returned. And he is fighting not to own this land, but to protect a home Stonewall wants to bulldoze and replace with an airstrip." Benton stiffened. Marianne placed her hands on the table. "We will not argue emotion alone. We have documentation, tax proof, eyewitness accounts, and, most importantly, a truth so simple that even corporate money can't bury it." She looked right at the judge. "This land isn't abandoned. It's alive. And it belongs to the people who bled for it, not those who bid for it." The first blow. Judge Barrett leaned back. "Very well. We proceed with evidence and witnesses tomorrow." He slammed his gavel once. Court adjourned for the day. Jason finally breathed. Mara wiped a tear she didn't want anyone to see. Outside, the sky stretched wide and blue. Neighbors gathered around, hands on their shoulders, voices soft with hope. Mara's friend Leah hugged her. Jason looked at the old courthouse and whispered, "One day down." Mara exhaled. 9 to go. Back at the ranch, the kids waited on the porch. Hope ran into Mara's arms. Lily grabbed Jason's hand. Noah asked, "Did we win?" "Not yet," Jason said. "But we will," Mara added quietly. Jason looked at her. She didn't look away. The courthouse smelled faintly of coffee and old wood varnish when Jason and Mara walked in the next morning. There was no mistaking the tension, like a storm cloud pressed against the ceiling. Locals, reporters, farmers, ranch families, all packed into the gallery. People who still believed land meant something. Jason's heart hammered in his chest, but his face stayed still. Mara walked beside him, shoulders squared, jaw steady. Marianne Collier was already there. Come. Sure. Prepared for war. Across the aisle, Logan Bradford sat smoothing his tie, pretending to be relaxed. Charles Benton reviewed documents methodically, lips pressed in a thin line. This was the day they started calling witnesses. The bailiff, all rise. Court is now in session. Judge Harold Barrett presiding. Judge Barrett stepped in, gaze serious. We will begin witness testimony. Miss Collier, proceed. Marianne stood. Your Honor, the defense calls Marigold Miss Clara Jenkins. Miss Clara was small, silver-haired, wearing her church hat like a crown. She walked slowly to the witness stand. Marianne, do you swear to tell the truth? Miss Clara nodded, voice soft. I do. Marianne, Miss Clara, how long have you lived by Hale Ranch? 70 years. What did you witness after Mr. Hale left? Miss Clara clasped her hands. Mara saved that land. I saw her fixing fences in the rain, growing corn in dead soil, feeding neighbors when they had nothing. Marianne, did you ever see Stonewall Corpier helping the land? Miss Clara blinked. Only saw them come to take. A murmur rippled across the courtroom. Benton stood for cross-examination. Miss Jenkins, you have no legal stake, correct? She smiled sweetly. Just my backbone and my memory, dear. Laughter. Even the judge smirked. Next witness, the tax officer, Mr. Roland Pierce. Marianne placed tax receipts on the evidence table. These receipts, she said, show property tax was paid, not by Jason Hale or Stonewall, but by Mara Whitlock for the past 4 years. Benton objected. She is not the legal owner and therefore cannot. Judge Barrett cut him off. She paid the taxes. It's admissible. Benton's turn. Stonewall called Logan Bradford to the stand. Benton. Mr. Bradford, is it true Stonewall legally purchased this land? Logan, yes. Benton. And did you attempt to remove trespassers peacefully? Logan, we were more than generous. Marianne rose. Mr. Bradford, is it also true Stonewall sent private agents to pressure residents to evacuate? Logan hesitated. We made offers. Marianne placed a printed email on the stand. Her voice was calm but deadly. Is this your email? The one that says, use pressure if needed. If they resist, drag them into financial exhaustion. Gasps filled the room. Logan's face went pale. Judge Barrett leaned forward. Answer the question. Logan swallowed. Yes, but that was protocol. Judge Barrett held up his hand. That's enough. Outside the courtroom during recess, reporters swarmed. Jason, did you know about the email? Ms. Whitlock, do you believe Stonewall targeted single mothers? Are the children his? Jason stepped in front of Mara protectively. No comments, he said, jaw clenched. Inside, Mara whispered, they're circling. He whispered back, let them. We're still here. That night at home, the children waited by the porch. Hope ran to Mara. Are they still trying to take it? Mara knelt. Yes. Are we losing? Lily whispered. Jason crouched beside her. Not today. Noah asked quietly, do we still fight tomorrow? Jason pulled all 3 children close. Every day, until we don't have to anymore. Later, after the children slept, Mara stood on the porch, arms wrapped around herself. Jason stepped beside her. You did good today, he said. You didn't yell at anyone, she murmured. He smiled. Almost did. Pause. Mara looked ahead. Tomorrow could go bad. Jason nodded. I know. She turned to him. Her voice was low. If we lose this, I don't want you to disappear again. He looked at her, really looked. I won't, he said. You promise? With everything I am. She didn't answer. But for the first time, she leaned her head against his shoulder and stayed. The air inside the courtroom felt different on the final day, charged, heavy, like the sky right before lightning touches ground. Word had spread far beyond Willow Creek. People who had never set foot in Hale Ranch came to stand in the halls. Some stood because they cared about land. Some because they'd lost their own. Some because they just needed to see a fight that wasn't already decided. Jason and Mara walked side by side through the courthouse doors. He wore the same worn boots, the same rolled sleeves. She wore her faded denim jacket and braided hair, like armor that had seen storms before and survived. Inside, Miss Clara sat in the front row clutching her hat and a Bible. The sheriff leaned against the back wall. Even the local pastor was there, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Marianne stood ready at the defense table, papers neatly stacked, reading glasses low on her nose. Jason noticed her left hand trembled just slightly. Across from them, Stonewall Corp sat like polished stone, Logan Bradford, Charles Benton, and two executives flown in from Phoenix, sharp suits, colder hearts. The bailiff called out, "All rise. Court is now in session." Judge Harold Barrett presiding. The judge took his seat. His voice was stern but calm. "Today we conclude hearings in the matter of Stonewall Corp versus Hale and Whitlock regarding the land known as Hale Ranch. Both parties have presented arguments. We will now hear closing statements." He gestured to Benton. Stonewall's final argument. Charles Benton stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked to the center. "Your Honor," he began smoothly, "the law is not about sentiment. It is about ownership. Mr. Jason Hale abandoned this land. No deed was transferred properly. No legal documents named Miss Whitlock as heir or co-owner. Therefore, regardless of effort, her occupancy is unlawful." He glanced toward the gallery. "We don't dispute her hard work. But land is not awarded by effort, it is awarded by law. And the law says this land belongs to Stonewall Corporation." He returned to his seat with the certainty of a man who expected to win. Marianne's final statement. Marianne stood slowly. No theatrics. No notes. "Your Honor, I agree with one thing my esteemed colleague said. This case is about ownership." She stepped forward. "But not ownership on paper, ownership in truth." She pointed gently toward Jason and Mara. "When Mr. Hale left, this land should have died. But Mara Whitlock kept it alive. She paid the taxes. She harvested crops to feed families. She raised children here, children with roots deeper than Stonewall's bank accounts. She held up the faded tax receipts. For 4 years she paid. Alone. Next she held up a photo, the one from the barn tin box. And this is the man Stonewall says abandoned his land. He didn't abandon it. He lost himself, and found his way back." She looked directly at Judge Barrett. "Land isn't just dirt. It's memory. Legacy. It's children with storm-gray eyes asking, 'Are you staying this time?'" She placed both hands on the table. "If the law says selling this land to a corporation is justice, then maybe the law forgot what justice is." The courtroom was silent. Even Benton said nothing. The decision. Judge Barrett sat quiet for a long, heavy moment. His eyes moved from Stonewall's polished lawyers to Mara's worn boots and Jason's dirt-stained hands. Finally. "This court has reviewed deeds, tax records, testimony, and evidence of Stonewall's coercive acquisition strategies." He exhaled. "I find that Stonewall Corporation engaged in predatory intent, using legal ambiguity to claim land that was never abandoned in action, only in paperwork." Mara gripped Jason's hand. Judge Barrett continued. "Therefore, ownership of Hale Ranch is restored, fully and permanently, to Jason Hale and Mara Whitlock." He raised his gavel. "And as of this ruling, Stonewall Corp is barred from future claims on this property." Bang. Applause exploded. Tears. Relief. Hope. Logan Bradford's jaw fell slack. Benton's face flushed red. Jason didn't move at first. Then he turned to Mara. She was crying, silently, fiercely. He leaned in, pressed his forehead to hers. "We're home," he whispered. "For good?" she asked. "For good." Epilogue, 6 months later. The treehouse stood tall now, painted lavender, red, and white. Above the little door, a sign carved by small hands read, "Hale and Whitlock Family Treehouse Love Lives Here." The fence was new. The fields were green. Hope and Lily chased chickens across the yard, shrieking with laughter. Noah sat by the garden, sketching a blueprint for a swing set he planned to build with Jason. Under the porch, fresh herbs, lavender, thyme, basil, thrived in the garden. Jason started the day after the storm. Inside the kitchen, Mara kneaded bread dough. Flour dusted her cheeks. Jason walked in behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. Fence lines fixed, he murmured. Kids washed. You know they weren't, he smirked. She leaned back against him. You're staying? She asked. He kissed her temple. I'm never leaving. Outside, the wind leaned through the sycamore tree. The land exhaled. And at last, so did they.